Specifically, the most significant change by far is that this year, or at least until further notice, the Academy is willing to waive its demand that a movie play in at least one movie theater in Los Angeles to qualify for an Academy Award. So what they're sharing now is the film must be made available on the secure Academy screening room, member-only streaming suite within 60 days of the film's streaming or VOD release. The film must meet all other eligibility requirements. Now, for years and years, every company that wanted to win an Oscar needed to put its movie in a movie theater. Now, there's like a lot of murkiness around this in terms of how they're going to litigate this. And I guess we'll get into that with some of the questions because it's all about whether or not there was a planned theatrical release and whether that can be proven. And frankly, in some cases, it's easy to prove because, for example, some actors or filmmakers have clauses in their contract that say this film must play in a theater, but not everyone does. And not every movie has a document that says this film will play in a movie theater. So especially stuff that is unfinished or is in a post-production process and isn't dated or has been moved. Like there's just a lot of unknowns here. There were a few more significant categorical changes that were made. The two sound categories, sound mixing and sound editing, have been combined after much speculation into one award for best achievement in sound that emphasizes the team effort. The number of Oscar statuettes remains the same. Up to 6 statuettes may be rewarded. Eligible recipients may include 1 production sound mixer, 2 supervising sound editors, and 3 re-recording mixers. In the musical original score category, for a score to be eligible, it must comprise a minimum of 60% original music. Additional for sequels and franchise films, a score must have a minimum of 80% new music. In a procedural change in the international feature film category, and this is very important, all eligible Academy members will now be invited to participate in the preliminary round of voting. For the first time, film submissions will be made available through the Academy screening room, et cetera, et cetera. So that last point we will call the Portrait of a Lady on Fire rule, which clearly indicated that there was some discontent with Les Miserables taking the space for France in that category after Portrait of a Lady on Fire has emerged as one of the most beloved films of the last 10 years and did not even appear at the Academy Awards. So, these changes are all pretty radical. This is probably the best time to now turn to the questions. What do you say, Bobby? I feel like it would be wise to caveat every single question here with a big, fat, red-lettered I don't know. If we're in quarantine in October, there is no Oscar season. It's not going to be the same thing that it was. If there are no fall festivals, it's going to be completely different. Now, whether that prizes a place like Netflix over a place like Focus Features or Searchlight, which tend to compete just as aggressively, I really don't know. But maybe that's the point. I really don't know.
Let's just do some Netflix questions because a lot of people asked a lot of them, and we're already talking about Netflix. So Ron wants to know: does this mean Netflix has a better chance at winning Best Picture?
Yes, but I yes and no, and I kind of honestly think it doesn't change it. I think that just the situation in general had already made Netflix well positioned because they have so many more movies in the bank. They have a distribution system that is not interrupted that's already in place. They know how to market their movies in this way because they've already been doing it. So, and as I said, they also have a David Fincher movie and a Spike Lee movie coming out. So I thought they already had great chances. And I am curious to see what the ultimate final eligibility looks like because all of the Academy rules are caveated with, basically for the time being until further notice. And it seems like they might not want to extend this all the way through December. At least that's how I'm reading it. Sean, maybe you're reading it differently. So if it's summer movies that are on VOD that are eligible for streaming, maybe that benefits Netflix in some way because they can put a movie up and not have to worry about a theatrical release and recirculate it and it's viable. But for the most part, I think Netflix has been in a great position for a while now, and that continues.
I think the first point you made is the most vital, which is they just have more movies done than anybody else. So if what we've heard is true, and that all of those movies are at least have completed the production phase, and they're all in post production, they're going to have between 5 and 8 contenders for Best Picture. And I don't think that Bad Boys for Life will be contending for Best Picture this year. There's the movies that we've seen from the major studios, much as I've enjoyed some of them, are not really there. Now, it'll be interesting to see if this extends for a long period of time, if films like Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always that we've talked about on this show can contend. But there's no guarantee that I don't know what the state of West Side Story is. Steven Spielberg's musical adaptation that was thought to compete. I don't know if it's done. I don't know if they're in post-production. I don't know if there needs to be reshoots. I don't know. Maybe we'll start to get a little bit more transparency into that process as the Oscar question comes to the fore. But I mean, we know Tenet is done. We know The French Dispatch presumably is done since it was going to Cannes. I think anything tabbed for Cannes theoretically was expected to be completed. But that's not a huge list of films. They didn't announce their slate before all this went down. And so, yeah, Netflix just has more movies that will be ready. And that's by nature gives them a leg up.
All right. Claire asked, as they've merged the category, what new category would you love to see in its place? And then the most asked question of all of the mailbag questions. Will they add a stunt category now?
I mean, we don't actually get to decide this, so we don't know. If we were in charge, yes, they would add a stunt category. I would also like them to add either best first feature or best breakthrough feature, which is just one of the easiest ways to clean up the enduring issues with best director, and to also possibly spotlight some of the smaller movies that are not going to get as much of a platform as they might have in this year or really in any year, because it's just harder to get attention to anything.
We just went from 24 awards to 23 awards by combining the sound categories. You know my opinion about this, Amanda. There should be 75 awards. Okay. There should be a 5-day festival of handing out awards. I'm happy to host if the Academy is interested. I will not sleep.
Via Zoom?
I'm happy to do it via Zoom. Whatever they need, I'm happy to participate. Yeah, I agree. There should be a best breakthrough performance. There should be a best first feature. There should be all manner of new awards. We've pitched a bunch of them on this podcast before. As far as the stunt category goes, I'm going to kind of zag on this a little bit. I feel like everybody now is like, there should be a stunt category, and they don't even know why they're saying it. They've just become convinced because they're so, like, just Google stunt category Oscars. There's so many pieces that have been written like in the last 2 years where people are like, why isn't there a stunt category? This is an outrage that there is no stunt category. It's like, do people even know how stunts work in Hollywood? Do they even understand what they're asking for? I don't know. It's a little much. Everybody needs to just settle down with pretending that they really like stunts in movies. Every movie is CGI. The only guy who's doing stunts at this point is either in a John Wick movie or Tom Cruise. So everybody just needs to fucking relax. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, listen, I agree with the CGI stuff. I just want to watch Tom Cruise jump out of things. That's the only action that I'm interested in. I hope he's well. I hope he wears a parachute or whatever they do. I don't really know, because I also don't really know how stunts works. I just go, ooh. You need to chill out with the I had this on vinyl, whatever, of the this is what happens when you start a cause and you toil for years on the message boards and in the podcast, and the people come to you and they accept your worldview. You got to say thank you. You got to say yes. You got to go with the people. Okay.
As you know, I'm Irish Catholic, which means I just do not know how to be loved. I just do not know how to accept affection in any form. The one thing I will say about this is, one thing that would be cool if they introduce a new category or a couple of new categories would be to have some sort of honorary award or an acknowledgement of who should have won those awards through the years. And if they're not going to do that more than likely, but the high time of stunt work in Hollywood is 70s, 80s, and 90s. That's when the business was really figuring out how to pull off incredible stunts that were, very dangerous and created incredible experiences for people who went to movies. And a lot of those people who organized those stunts went on to become filmmakers. And there's been this revival of this with the guys who make the John Wick movies. And I have tons of admiration and respect for people who do this work. Well, I'm frankly delighted for a change to not have to invent a premise for this podcast, but to talk about something that is actually meaningful to the world that we cover on a regular basis. I suspect this won't be the end of conversations about the changing Oscar rules. Bobby, thank you for all your help here, and thanks everybody for turning in those questions. This was a fun episode. We'll see you guys next week.